Frooooty is a hidden gem I recently stumbled upon. She's a Chinese illustrator from Kingston, Massachusetts, but not just any illustrator. She's curating contemporary design and is a master in designing characters. When I casually scrolled through Twitter, I discovered her series, Gustav Klimt, Van Gogh, Claude Monet, famous traditional paintings transformed into intricate, unique characters. I am stunned by her work. It's truly indescribable. Water on the plate was inspiration, and the small drop falling was curiosity. The moment the plate overflowed, I had already started to think, how can I do something similar? In this video, I will be breaking down my process, attempting to transform her idea onto my friend's original character. I will not design a character myself, even though I really wanted to. Instead, I will draw my friend's adorable original character as a gift to surprise her, because simply said, she absolutely deserves it. The first step was to decide which traditional painting I wanted to recreate for the background. So, without thinking too long, I texted my friend and asked her about her favorite paintings. And gladly, she gave me a whole variety to choose from. Since her chosen paintings are known for their intricate details, and me having absolutely no experience in recreating the essence of traditional paintings, nor really understanding the technical skill or tools that the artist might have used to achieve a specific effect, I had to decide for the easiest. So I chose Soleil Levant. But first, a bit of background before we start digging deeper into the ideation. Claude Monet is not only my absolute favorite traditional artist of all time, but he also had a huge impact on my art. He's often considered the most famous and typical representative of Impressionism. His great artistic abilities and passionate dedication to Impressionist ideals in the later years of his career have earned him his fame. Among all the Impressionists, Monet felt the strongest commitment to plein air painting. It was not just one of many artistic experiences for him. It was his declaration of devotion to painting. Plein air painting for him was not merely a temporary capturing of real impressions. It was the true goal of his painting and became the most prominent feature of his extensive body of work. Monet aimed to capture the momentary effects of light, shadow, and atmosphere, fleeting impressions, as he called them. Monet was so fascinated by this idea of painting outdoors that he braved all kinds of weather, even the fiercest storms. The extent of his dedication is evident in an account from a passerby who has observed him on the Normandy coast in 1885. The water ran into his cloak and he painted the storm. Having all details explained, we can finally start with the coloring. Monet has inspired me to view colors as a powerful tool for conveying emotion in my works. Monet's nuanced understanding of how color interacts with light and atmosphere allowed me to create scenes that felt alive and dynamic. For my friend's gift, I wanted to convey the warmest atmosphere possible. For this, I will have to harmonize the dark colors of Soleil Levant, such as deep blues and purples with vibrant hues such as orange and yellow tones. Starting with the skin coloring, I try to use soft yet high saturated colors. I try to concentrate on the warm atmosphere I wanted to achieve first. Combining warm with cold was a problem for later. Putting down the shadows first, I tried to use complementary color choices such as orange and blue hues to heighten visual impact. This effective technique was initially used by Monet to create dynamic contrasts. This can be seen in many of his paintings, heightening the visual impact of both dark and vibrant colors to contribute to the overall liveliness of his compositions. Lastly, I will add light, details, and smaller strokes. Moving on to his hair, I start off with the base color. Of course, slightly adding the skin color on the hair with low opacity where the light would reflect its color on. A trick used by many artists to make the colors more cohesive and that the hair color does not stand out too much. When I started to add the single strands of hair, I was reminded of my friend's style of hatching. Feast, who has color pencil-like coloring style, has inspired me to try something new. After watching several videos of her, I started hatching from dark to light, and for that step I smudged the hair to make it more flowy and atmospheric, which is super satisfying, by the way. I will not explain my coloring process for the clothes because I didn't know what I was doing myself, but that's okay. We artists should not be forced to explain every step of our process, right? As you may know, flowers are almost always a part in my artworks. This means that I had to include them and flower language this time too. Therefore, I immediately start to look for flowers representing friendship. Something lovely to express the warmth of our relationship even more. In the end, I went for lilacs, not only symbolizing happiness, passion, but it's also zeniths, my friend's OC flower, officially representing him. And to be honest, she could not have chosen a better flower for this beautiful boy. But I'm not done yet, because I wanted to gift Zenith a whole bouquet with flowers. So I decided to add tulips, yellow ones, and yellow roses, symbolizing friendship. Or friendship, since she one day started to call me Lady Tulip and I started to call her Lady Rose. I already did a video on how I drew these flowers, so I will just put it here and explain. First of all, setting the 3 key colors, you will need a light tone, a mid-tone, and a dark tone. Having set the mid-tone or base color, we'll start to go in with the darkest color and set strokes in the flow of the flower. Then you do it the same way with the light tone. Going into detail now, we will use the darkest tone to paint in the shape of the flowers. With lightest color we will do the same, but more in a fun scribbling way. In the next step we will set the airbrush to glow and pick an orange color. White or yellow is also possible. Now you will set the highlights by putting down random strokes or more like dots. Coming to the last step, we will now use white to outline all the small flowers. Additionally, you can smudge or blur it to make it look more the stick. Having everything colored, let us move on to the most important part, the background. Since I have no clue how exactly Monet painted Soleil Levant, I decided to study his painting first. And what I noticed is that he didn't care much about the arrangement or to create a sense of room or space. Instead, he tries to paint exactly what the eye sees and the feeling it gives, which means that he focuses on things like air, light, and water. The effects of the atmosphere are the main focus, without worrying too much about specific objects. Looking at the way he painted, you can see that he used small, short brush strokes next to each other. This made it easy to see how the light changes or how the air shimmers over the water. The dissolution of contours and surfaces into an abundance of microscopic color gradations in favor of the heightened sensory appeal of the color surface. This is what I was going for. The first big obstacle I had to face was to find the right brushes. I had to take a really good look at Frooooty's illustrations and the original painting to figure out an approach. By analyzing Monet's color palette, I understood that he incorporated mostly cool and dull colors into the painting with blues, bluish purples, and grays. But I have to make clear that my goal is not to take Monet's painting one-to-one, but to understand and apply, uniting and harmonizing a character into a traditional painting. I set up the first layer of the background, which was this purplish blue, and I eventually decided to change the hues of the colors from conveying a cool and peaceful atmosphere to a warm and glowing one. Therefore, I switched between saturated colors, but with low opacity, and pastel colors, also with low opacity. From this point on, it gets really hard to explain the further process because I genuinely was just experimenting and figuring out how to layer the different colors without losing the texture of the brush. Something I learned from this process was to really pull down the opacity and to take it slow with layering colors on top of each other, trying not to blend the colors as the Impressionists did. When the orange or yellow of the clouds and sky were too bright, I just took the color of the background and layered it on top again. No erasing, no undoing. To wrap up the sky and clouds, I added a bit of shimmer by setting the charcoal blend brush to glow. And then, to mimic the style Monet painted his clouds, I set the brush to blend, lowered the size, and created a sense of atmosphere. Let's move on to the even more difficult part of this painting, the water. Since his brushwork varied from short, quick strokes that conveyed the shimmering quality of light to softer, fluid lines that depicted gentle ripples and waves, it was time to put in some wrist work. After I laid down the main colors, blue and purple, using the same technique I painted the sky with, I started to put down strokes from left to right to achieve that water effect. Monet created a really revolutionary painting technique to realize his ideas, in which small, short brush strokes stand next to each other, making the constant change of light and the flickering of the air over the water directly visible. To build up some depth, I started with dark blue and purple strokes, going lighter and lighter to yellow and orange strokes, as seen in the reflections of the sun. Next, I had to paint in the overall shapes that Monet portrayed in his painting, such as ships, the port in general, and shapes far in the background indicating a town. Lastly, I added all the little fishies to complete the scenery. I did not record the finishing touches of the background, but it's important to mention that I used the rough charcoal brush to go over the complete background to achieve the traditional canvas texture. Here's how it turned out so far. For the last step, I really wanted to make the whole piece cohesive and powerful in the message I wanted to put across, which is love. Love for my favorite original character by her, and love, admiration, affection, respect, and attachment I feel towards my dear Lady Rose. In my last video, I didn't pay much time on explaining my layer process, my methods on how to create atmospheric illustrations. So I really tried to put more effort into it this time. So listen carefully. The first and most important thing to include is always light. In my artworks, I always try to include a light source which interacts with the characters, bending around the edges, causing it to scatter. By adding a glowing, sun-shaped beam right behind the head, I managed to underline the vocal point, which is the face of the character, lighting up when he looks at the flowers. To adjust the brilliance of the background, I additionally added white blur and beams around the corners using the airbrush. Since Monet's painting depicted a sunrise, I used strong colors to complete the light. Coming from the right side, the sun rays strike him, bend around the neck and head, passing over the shoulders. Starting off softly, I used the airbrush again and started to draw in the sun rays, which you can see clearer on the right layer side. Keep in mind how strong you want the light to be and adjust the opacity accordingly. Next step is always to set up the blending mode correctly, which can be pretty hard. For this example, linear dodge fit the best, but it's up to you, so definitely experiment on that. Here's before and after. A secret method of mine to bring the harmony of colors to a different level is to pick a color, create a new layer, and put it on top of everything. If you look closely, you can notice this in many of my illustrations. For this piece, I used a brownish orange and put it on top to prevent certain parts to lose their detail, texture, or vibrance, like the head or the flowers. I simply erased it. Even at the bottom, I had to add blue overlay to make it appear as he was standing right there. Having done all that, it was time to strengthen the glow even more. Duplicated all the light layers, merged them, and set them to glow. Adjusted the intensity of each part just like this. Next, I had to balance out the glowing on the right side, so I switched to the other side, establishing some texture again. For that, I used the rough charcoal brush, set it to glow, and used orange. Much better. To finish up the light overlays, I added a lot of flying particles and glitter by using the specklet brush, setting it to glow. Now the painting is pretty light up, but it looks pretty flat, so it's important to add in some shadows under the flowers, around the flowers, around his neck, using black and linear burn. On the dark side of his body where the sun can't reach, and on top of his head using dark blue and multiply. Also, his skin color was too bright, so I adjusted it with a purple saturation overlay. The final of the final steps was to do something about this irritating glow, so I duplicated the background and put it over some of the glow layers in 2 separate layers, erasing everything except the top and small parts around it brings clarity and focus to the composition. This meticulous process leads us to the final painting. I'm proud to say that this project is now complete, and I hope I was able to come somehow near Fruooty's series, and I genuinely hope you learned something from this video. Thank you for sticking with me, accompanying me on this journey until the end. This project was lovely and truly heartwarming for me. Thank you for your curiosity until our paths cross again.